Let me take this off. Does that blind anybody with my head? How many people heard me were here last time? Okay, good. You know, you guys might see some of this again, but here's the important part of this, is that you need to hear this stuff for real. Well, it's nice that you give me accolades for this. Here's the most important part. I'm not a lobbyist of any particular kind. If I was not here doing this, even if there was one person here, I would be guilty of recklessly endangering people. So when she talks about my credentials, and here's why this is important. You know, I'm an interprovincial journeyman electrician, and the reason I did that is because electrical engineers can't wear tools, they can't do anything. They design electrical systems, but guess what? The provincial and federal governments and industries certified one professional to design, install, maintain, and troubleshoot Fortis's and other energy companies' electricity, and that is electricians. We are the experts related to this, so even when you hear somebody said to me today, they said, Fortis dismissed you. And I said, their accountant dismissed me. An unqualified engineer dismissed me, and an epidemiologist who, you know, quite frankly, would never work where we are. So when I talk to you guys about this stuff, I am not lobbying for anything. I'm talking about things related to your life and your livelihood. So, and listen, I mean this so much. You know, you might think people say you're an unassuming guy to do this. I've consulted, you know, when I say I consulted for this, I've got triple science credentials, and I'm an adjunct professor for medical education, where we lecture accredited medical education applicable in North America. You can imagine troubleshooting for Syncrude, Suncor, fire departments, cleared to consult on military issues. It's just very technical work, but guess what? We can't, you know, fudge anything on this. We've got to do our job. We're first responders. I'm a first responder manager, so I have to lead in my capacities, and that's why I'm here. So even when I spoke at the university here a few times, they said, weren't you here last week talking about water? And I said, yes. And they said, now you're here talking about energy. Yes. Next week you're going to be here talking about forests. Yes. And chemicals. Yes. My background, even for me, if anybody would have told me I was going to do this, I wouldn't have done it, because I'm not being just a journeyman electrician. I'm a building construction engineering technologist, which is every aspect of construction from contracts to completion. My fellow graduates in that program work for PCL as project managers, the biggest construction companies in the world. And the reason I did that is, as an electrical professional, here we are working with electricity, energy. On the building engineering side of that, guess what we do? Building engineering side, we design those buildings, their energy use, how they use that building, those systems, how those buildings are wasting energy. Why you guys are being built and why this two-tiered system exists is because these guys didn't do their job. So when you hear me you know, giving somebody a hard time here, listen, I have to be liable for everything I'm saying, without a doubt. But when I tell you the city manager and city hall and these guys are not doing their jobs, it is what it is. You can appreciate even from me when they said, you guys have consulted for industries, even here, where you consulted for the industry and their insurer at the same time. Yes, to get the job done, to save money, save lives, keep the economy going, that's specifically what it is. If we didn't do our jobs in that capacity, guess what? They just wouldn't use us at all. You know, 25 years ago, we trained our first fire department. I'm blessed with the other part of my education where, as a thermal radiation guy, I was blessed to participate in the pioneering of infrared. Now, everybody knows what infrared is, thermography, and you've seen this heat-seeking stuff. When I started, it was a two-man show where you had to dress up to do all this stuff. So again, you guys take me seriously. When I say to you that this is dangerous, don't dismiss that. Because what they've done in Kelowna is they have compromised buildings, they've compromised you, and here's the important part as well. How many people know policemen? If you do, you need to tell them. They put them on their buildings as well. So while these guys are serving, guess what? Their families are in danger. Same thing with fire departments. Judges, it doesn't matter who you are, they're putting this on your building, you're going to be in trouble. So here's again where my job exists right here with the planet Earth. People need to understand this. Just like Star Trek, everything in existence is atoms and molecules. If everything wasn't held together properly, and there's better scientists to talk about that than me, things would just literally fall apart. 100% of it is energy. Atoms and molecules with electrons. That's why we're very, very careful as electricians. You know what they teach us to do? Here's why we wire the world, and here's why we don't use wireless. The best wireless for me is this, a remote control. When you go this, you point and you say, hey, get out of the way of the television. My remote control's not working. As soon as you're talking about EMFs that go through walls, go through buildings, when they talk about electromagnetic pulsed weapons, when the military talks about using this stuff, what they don't understand is this. You are literally destabilizing the planet at an atomic and molecular level, assaulting everything because they'll all be impacted. So as we go through some of this stuff, I just want to show you some of the work that we do. Some of you guys have seen this. We don't do this for accolades. We're not advertising. This is what we've done throughout our career in difficult diagnosis. I'm an unlikely guy to be lecturing in medical education, and our team working in clinical environments on difficult diagnosis. But you can imagine this. How many people have a university education or a post-secondary education of any kind? Here. How many, here imagine this for my double credentials as an electrical professional and building engineering professional. We can't see temperature. We calculate for it. We can calculate to 6 decimal points. It would drive you crazy with the math that goes through this. And what we did over 35 years is this, work with a bunch of great professionals to bring temperature out of a calculator to give sight of the energy they're trying to address, the real problems we have. So I'm going to skate through some of this stuff because I want you guys to see how serious this work is as it pertains to even you. Well, I want to show you this too because I forgot this part of it when they said, Curtis, you know, when it comes to the wireless issue, now this here, you guys can see this too because you're going to see it on their website. You're going to see that the document that Roselle and these guys have for you is this. When I cross-examined FortisBC in front of the BCUC as a registered intervener, that is the BC government. That is the highest provincial authority. It is what it is. You know, somebody was just here serving me something where I'm going to have to go to a BC courtroom. Well, guess what? When you guys read these transcripts and read what these guys have done, they're under oath. There is no higher authority. The fact that the BCUC didn't do their job, that's their problem. They'll have to deal with that. But when you read these transcripts with these experts under oath, I was there for these guys to technically disqualify me. I wanted them to beat me up and show me the safety of this program. And what these guys did is they didn't do any of that. These guys actually validated and verified the danger, the oscillations that these are going to cause, the problems, the fires, and literally the hell on earth. And I say that because doing this radio show today, they said, Google, this is great. Google, now they're so rich and so dumb, quite frankly, that they want to put satellites up in space. And they want to Wi-Fi the whole entire planet. Because just think of that ease of communication if the whole planet's Wi-Fi, all the customers, everything. What these guys don't understand is this. The only thing electrically compatible with that Wi-Fi is going to be the devices. It will kill everything on the planet without exception. And I'm going to qualify for you here when they say that do these EMFs cause cancer? The answer is 100% yes. When you're hit by this, it's going to cause cancer, and here's that why for technical people. Ohm's law is this, volts is equal to amps times resistance. So you're going to actually see that these guys admit they're inducing currents or amps, which increases cellular voltage, where here's a doctor that said this, 0.2 millionths of 1 volt increase changes your white blood cells. Now if you ask your doctor, and I did this, I said, what happens if you change your white blood cells? You're in a lot of trouble. They also admit under cross-examination that your nervous, hormonal, and immune systems work together so they will all be compromised. And the whole deal is this, well I cross-examined them, I said this, in order for people to be hurt by the frequencies, they have to be hit, yes. And here's Mark Warren, this guy from Fortis, saying, Curtis, you can be 20 centimeters away from that smart meter and you're safe. But guess what, under cross-examination, he did just before that. They said, we take exception to you saying we're going to blanket 17,000 square kilometers and hurt people. And I said, are you going to deploy this over these highly penetrating EMFs over 17,000 square kilometers to communicate with meters? Yes. You've got a 17,000 square kilometer microwave oven and everybody's in it. All the cities are in it, the industry's in it, buildings that aren't designed for it are in it. And again, when I talk about this, and I do this with the greatest humility, they say that over your career and your whole team, how much money have you guys saved? Syncrude, Suncorp, energy, governments, lives, and all the above. it's hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars, because that's what the whole purpose of all of this is. You know, when we do our jobs together with this, we're not lobbyists. So when I reported this and did this, I did this specific to the liability, because we're going to get into this with Fortis. Does anybody know how many meters they've installed so far? 40,000? So you imagine this right now. Here's the reality. You got 40,000 compromised buildings that can no longer be on the market because of the way that installation was done. That's separate of the antennas. 40,000 buildings that cannot be sold. So you do this. Has anybody got a calculator with them? Because think about this. I got a call from a guy, and he said, I used to be on the board of Toyota in South Africa, Jaguar, BMW. And I said, you're the accountant guy? And he said, yes. And he said, Curtis, let's pick a middle stream with Kelowna buildings. I said, what do you want to go with per unit? He said, what if we went with $350,000? What's $350,000 times 40,000? It's trillions and trillions of dollars. And do these guys really think insurers are just going to sit back and say, hey, we'll take $1 trillion hit? When those buildings are not compliant with code, you can't sell them, you've lost your investment. These guys will be sued to extinction. You guys take this very seriously. This is applicable to everybody without exception. Now, even yesterday, dealing with lawyers, they said, Curtis, some people are sensitive and other people aren't. Just your orientation to the fields, the size of you, the power densities, the increased electrical load can make those differences with everybody. When Fortis says, we're going to cover 17,000 square kilometers, what's an opt-out going to do for you?
Nothing.
Nothing. You imagine that young kid comes to my place and goes to put that meter on there, and I say, where are your credentials? I don't have any. What did you do with those connections in the homeowners next door? What did you do with those connections in there? We're not supposed to touch it. What's the range of that antenna? 3 kilometers. That was from Rutland Road all the way down to Enterprise Way, if you can imagine that. Now you imagine this. How many people know somebody with a pacemaker or have a pacemaker? Now you think about this. When you're at the dentist office, guess what they tell you? Oh, you got a pacemaker. We're not going to run that drill and that device close to your pacemaker because it will trigger it. If I, as an electrician, retired and had a pacemaker, they would tell me, stay out of an electromagnetic field. And so when we would, and guess what, an electromagnetic field is this. Imagine working as an electrician. People have done this. You're working with a drill. Well, the drill is the dirty electricity part of this. So if you're using a drill, a saw, or anything else, and just that close proximity, you run that, you push that, guess what? You're going to trigger a pacemaker. So you think about this. You're supposed to stay out of an electromagnetic field. Fortis is going to take it to 17,000 square kilometers. What do you think the odds are that they're going to trigger pacemakers? And pacemaker manufacturers say this. Stay out of an electromagnetic field. You can't do that. And here again, we did this because of this. What do you think that liability is going to be when they kill somebody? And this is going to happen. So when you keep this in mind here, this is actually a witness where Fortis wanted to know, this is actually part of the transcript, so you get to see there, where Fortis said, listen, who have you spoken to, or whatever you've done with this, or provided submitted evidence? And it was the Canadian Parliament, the Parliament of Canada, October 26, 2010. I provided expert witness at their request. And after that, it was that was the Standing Committee on Health. After that was the United States District Court of Oregon, where we provided a declaration under threat of perjury for Wi-Fi in schools. You can't put kids inside a microwave oven. It's that simple. And you'll see this when they show the science here. Imagine what these guys did. The codes admit this. We don't have building codes that say, hey, we're missing information, but you guys go ahead and build. Curtis, people are blowing up and getting electrocuted, but you guys just keep doing electricity and do what you do. We'll figure it out later on. To have an exposure code that says we're missing causality and biological plausibility should have set off alarm systems. The idea that the Prime Minister's office, the Government of Canada, allowed anybody to move forward with this, because once you find causation, guess what happens? You'll have to change the code, you'll have to go backwards. Well, these guys have already spent so much money on this and so entrenched in their lies and the money that they've done, these guys are actually fighting to keep doing this. So with that declaration in U.S. courts, guess what? Curtis, this can't hurt. Here the analogy is this for these guys, for real. This is how stupid this is. Curtis, the kids can't get hurt. by that laptop because they're not close enough that their heads get burned when they do this. But they left out the routers, bathing the classroom. And even one guy said, what is the range of that router? 800 feet. 3 football fields. So you imagine this, they're putting children inside an electrical circuit. If they're wearing medical devices, if those children are challenged, guess what? It triggers nerves. You're not supposed to hit them. Imagine triggering nerves from head to toe. How many people when they're younger went to the doctor and he does a cute little thing where he taps your knee like this? Your heart runs on nerves, your lungs. Imagine providing evidence for the BC Coroner's Office on this. SIDS rates were up 30% in 2011 or 2010. I said, did you consider Wi-Fi monitors for electromagnetic interference triggering those lungs or doing something affecting those vulnerable babies? They said, no, we didn't. So here's the other thing when Fortis said, Curtis, you know, who have you done this for? Here, it's also Michigan courts where we had to provide a declaration for those guys. I was on the expert panel for the Texas Public Utilities Commission. I provided written testimony for the Texas Senate Committee at their request, specific to the illegality of the smart meter program. Same stuff. And again, after that, it was another Texas Senate Committee specific to this. We're not lobbyists of any kind. So when people see this, some people that haven't seen this before, how many people, listen, you were here during 2003 when those fires interfaced? Well, guess what? They couldn't fight the fires, they couldn't see them, they couldn't do anything. So we tried to help Gordon Campbell, we tried to help the government, it didn't work. They didn't do anything. They said, nobody can see through the smoke, and I said, of course you can. So here's what happened with this. This is the fire getting ready to interface with Kettle Valley, and I literally had to jump. Here we are out there with students. I had to jump in front of a police car and say, you've got to get them out of here. It's here. As we're standing there, the bucket flies over with a helicopter. 30 seconds later, he drops that off and he comes back, and the policeman and I looked at each other and I said, it's here. We've got to get him out of here. So that initiated the evacuation of 15,000 people in Kettle Valley, August 21st. And again, it's a sad thing that here's where this weakened professional gene pool goes, where the next day, Premier Campbell's on the beach doing a photo op on Gyro Beach and doing his media like this. Him and Rich Coleman and the whole entourage came over and looked through the equipment, and we had this screen set up, and they said, you're looking at the fire through the smoke? Yes. They said, are we doing that? And I said, no. I said, you guys thought we were smoking something or doing something. They just literally ignored us with this. And guess what? Sharon Shepard, they said they gave her a hard time when she wanted a public inquiry into this. And guess what? I had to call the Premier's office, because you had to call the Premier's office to present for the inquiry. So I kept calling and calling, and finally I said, listen, you're going to have to add me to that. I'm going to be presenting in Kelowna. When I was here in Kelowna, guess what? The audio feed came undone when I was speaking. It was amazing. So when a lawyer told me this for real, Curtis, you were edited out of the public fire inquiry. I said, what do you mean I was edited out? He said, you didn't even present it. To phone Premier Campbell's office specifically and say, what did you do? We weren't accepting pictures for this fire inquiry. It was based on an audio only. When you were talking, it came unplugged. And that might seem like a good idea for a premier. Guess what? 19 firefighters died in Arizona. Those 25-year-old hard-working boys when that forest fire ran over them. It's a heck of a thing to represent. We could have given command sight of that so they could have saved those boys. Here again, how many people know what groundwater is? I didn't. This is groundwater upwellings within river systems. This ended up being the Department of Fisheries and Oceans used our work for their standards in a request for proposals because they said, we can't see groundwater. Here are these upwellings. So this is what we do with this professional troubleshooting. They said, do you think you can do this? I said, of course we can. We did this years ago. And they said, we tried to duplicate you. And I said, you lost sight of your groundwater because of solar EMFs, electromagnetic fields, doing this. But here's what it looks like. The brighter areas there, that's groundwater. Biologists want to see that. We want to just look after things. So again, we're not lobbyists of any kind. Here again, medical imaging. When you go to your doctor, it's a very sad thing when our doctors, they want to see inflammation. With injury, infection, there's inflammation. They're blind. And I said, I just can't even imagine. So here we have lots of challenges and lots of years and millions of dollars. Now we lecture in clinical environments specific to this difficult diagnosis, because these guys need to see this. So you can see this white stuff here in a scale on the right-hand side. This is rheumatoid arthritis. And the whole purpose on our side is this. This is non-invasive radiology. When they can see that, they should be able to fix it. That's it. Never mind symptoms, never mind giving you a bunch of stuff. So again, very technical stuff. So when you hear me beating up Fortis, here again is progressive infection 24 hours after an infectious spider bite. Here is acute pancreatitis. Michael Landon died from that. Steve Jobs died from pancreatitis. Sally Ride, the astronaut, died from acute pancreatitis because it's very difficult to diagnose. And even this, with temperature technology, they said, Curtis, that technology sees surface temperature. And I said, yes. They said, how did you see behind the stomach? That's where the pancreas is. I said, the pancreas was inflamed, heat transfers, it transfers to the surface of the skin. That's where we picked it up. And giving them sight of it. We don't diagnose. We don't do any of that. That's just to give them sight of it. Here, imagine this with breast imaging. Here's an example. These guys here have 50 clinics with for breast imaging for breast cancer. Well, they took this image of a girl and she said, would you look at my report? My mother died from breast cancer. My sister had a breast removed. She said, this is my imaging. As soon as I saw this, I said, I disagree with everything they've said. Tell them to lower the temperature span and send it back. Can you see the differences between the breasts here? And I said, what's going on above that left areola? That's where they removed a mass. And the whole purpose of that is you want to catch cancers early. You want to do this stuff early for all particular reasons in the world, and this is to give medicine sight of their objectives. And so we actually train them as well. When you talk about energy issues, we've got problems. Because as we build and build and build and build and develop, you can imagine these power stations trying to keep up with this. Here's what missing insulation looks like in a wall. You've got energy losses with that. You're being billed for it. And the whole purpose of this again is, we've got tradespeople, we know how to fix this stuff, they just need to see it. Where now you get a building inspection, guess what they do? Checklist, checklist, checklist. They really don't see a heck of a lot in how your building is doing. And there's actually somebody that was here last time I was here, and his energy bills are just atrocious as well. Well, guess what? We went over to his place to assist him. And I'm not even there to be nice when I did this. I'm listening to him, tell me a story. I'm not going to fudge anything for him or anybody else. He is so energy conscious and did such a good job with what was going on. Listen, there were lots of inefficiency issues, but there's no way in the world he's using 6,500,000 watts in 2 months. Here again, imagine in Kelowna. And again, listen, this is shame on the city of Kelowna, because these guys were informed of this. We were on Mayor Gray's expert, invitation-only expert panel in 2005 related to sustainability. And all we wanted to do is show these guys, trades need to see energy use. So here is a building on Enterprise Way where they only insulated the showroom only. The heaters are on the roof, so you're heating the building from the top down. Imagine this guy's bills for real. The thermostat's 5 feet off the floor. They're heating it from the top down. You're going to pay that two-tiered system. These guys, that's probably why they cost as much as they do. Here is again, these are code-related issues. This is evidence for the BC government, the BCUC in this. An engineer gets us to look at a building and says, you have to tie everything to a code rule. Here's air leakage around doors. Well, you can actually tie that to a code rule. They don't want the systems working harder. You can do all of it. Everything is related to codes and standards. Here, imagine this with solar radiation. I know people like dark, absorbent colors. Don't do that. Here's an example of this. Solar radiation, solar EMFs. Here is this building here before sunrise. Nice and cool, everything's atmospheric. Look at this, because it's a dark building. This is right after sunrise, not even an hour. And it's up to, 68 or 88 degrees Celsius. It's designed for a maximum of 33. So when they talk about these energy issues, how many people have air conditioning in your home? Guess what? Air conditioning is refrigeration. Your building has become a source of heat and you're paying monster dollars. Those air conditioners draw a lot of wattage. So because they're so inefficient, because the building is a source of heat that has created that for you, guess what? You're paying thousands and thousands of watts per hour reacting to the symptoms where, guess what? Shade. lighter colors. There's reasons why Europe whitewashes buildings. They reflect solar radiation instead of being grabbed by solar radiation where it interacts with you. They don't use air conditioning. And again, this was given to the city of Kelowna. And imagine lecturing this in the United States and they said, Curtis, does the city of Kelowna understand that you're going to create thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs and help your university, give sight to the university, doing those things? And I said, when we go down there and Sharon Shepherd arranged for us to meet with the city managers, you know what these guys said? We're not going to let you present. And I said, why is that? And he said, we're a proud environmental community. And I said, you've got to be kidding me, dude. You know what the city manager, that $250,000 a year man said to me? Curtis, you make our management feel defensive. Well, how many of you guys are tradesmen where somebody said, Curtis, you make me feel defensive, and as electricians, we just give you a big hug. That isn't going to happen. We do our jobs, we do those things, and for that idiot making 250 grand a year to use something like that, when we're there on codes and standards related to your buildings, your investments, and these weenies aren't doing their jobs. They could address this. You can imagine this. This is what Fortis is trying to address for real. You think your smart meter is going to catch that? No, it's going to cause your building to vibrate and generate heat as well. Here's a horrible thing. Here's Kettle Valley. You see how hot it is right here? This was done for the Americans. Our buildings here are designed with climatic data that is provided by the City of Kelowna, bylaw 7245, that says this: -20 to simulate the coldest time of the year, plus 33 to simulate the hottest time of the year. Or they'd say, pardon me, -4 if it was Fahrenheit, plus 95 if it was Fahrenheit. That's the design temperatures. So we insulate that building to accommodate that load. We put in the energy systems for this. These roofs are 198. Now the UN is meeting on this, and they're meeting, and imagine this, the UN has put in $700 billion or $1 trillion to address, there's something heating the atmosphere, and we don't know what it is, but we think it's emissions instead of this. This building is designed for a maximum of 95. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than that. You're heating the atmosphere where we're changing hydrological cycles, we're changing weather for real, and creating these bad things. And that's what Fortis is trying to address. Imagine this. Fortis is producing millions of wasted watts per hour reacting to the symptoms of that, instead of low emissivity, reflective products, cool roof technology. And here's this for me, and again, listen, I've got this double education, and we design buildings, we do this. When you see it, it's humbling as can possibly be, because this is my house. So imagine this. First we image the building, it's dark on one side, whiter on the other side. And so we imaged it, one, to see how hot it would get and what would happen on the inside, and turned on the air conditioning. Air conditioning is refrigeration, very cold, and here it is. The air conditioning is laying on the floor right here. So you have to lay on the floor to get the best benefit. If you're standing up, you're going to have some problems. You know the wildest thing for me? My pets were laying upside down with their feet up in the air, and the humans just didn't even have the brains to do that. They're going, it's hot, still hot in here. Here's the heat coming inside the building here. Like I said, it was just funny. I'm watching my Shih Tzu 4 feet up in the air, and I thought, you little bugger. But here, imagine this. It's 75 degrees at the register. Here it is coming through the lumber. This massive heat load coming back inside like this. This is happening everywhere. This is going to generate hundreds of thousands of jobs addressing this problem instead of this ridiculous grid that they're using, thinking, hey, we're going to catch energy issues. It's not going to catch anything. How many people have chopped down a tree in their yard before? Well, guess what? Here's what shade effect does on a solar exposed building. It humbled the heck out of me. And underneath the shade of a tree, the building is exactly atmospheric temperature. Those are the thermal regulators for the whole entire planet. Now when it comes to smart meter fires, here's the deal with this. And I want people to take this seriously and hold me accountable with this, because you're going to complain to the RCMP, you're going to use us for this, and guess what? They can come arrest me any day. But guess what? They're doing this in their own homes. As an electrician, Fortis does not have the authority to come on your property and touch that meter base. There are meters on the meter base. They can look at their equipment. They can maintain their equipment. That meter is attached to the meter base. They can't remove it. They can read it. If they wanted to remove it, they would have to hire an electrician. We would be there and say, I would say this, okay, we're going to go inside, turn off your power, make sure everything's safe, do those things, disconnect it at the pole, whatever you're going to do. And then I'm going to watch him, I'm going to say, I'm representing the owner, I'm going to say, you're going to move that meter very carefully because those connections might be fused together. It's got connections on here that have never been maintained, some of them for decades. Okay, and we maintain electrical connections for industry yearly, every 6 months, because they are so volatile and so dangerous. So we would make that guy do that. I've watched these videos where these guys are kicking on the meter, hammering on the meter, without understanding this. The stab connections here are where the meter goes on. Fortis, in their absolute ignorance, I hope they look at this too, Fortis has actually told their little bean-head installers, don't touch the homeowner's meter base. Well, guess what? Those stab connections are electrically wired here. So they didn't tighten that up. They didn't do anything here. Look at this bent prong right here with the stab connection. Oops, that's where the fire started. So you imagine this. They are not maintaining any of those connections. They're coming up to your property. They're swapping that meter under load, which is going to cause arcing and surging of the connections, where you're going to have surges inside the building, thousands, maybe. Listen, you can get surges in literally millions of volts. You know, I had a friend of mine that was playing, I don't know what he was doing, but he said, Curtis, I've got an experiment for you. He said, I was in the shower playing with my camera, and I said, I don't want to hear about it. But he said, as soon as I pressed that flash, he said, I just got rocked. And guess what? We did an experiment in class because I was doing some electrical stuff, and they said, he might have got 5 million volts. You've got to be very careful playing with this. So now imagine this. So when they do the swap, now you've created to compromise your building. They haven't maintained these connections. So now you've got load coming onto your meter, and guess what? You're going to have more arcing, more surges, and people are dying in fires. There is no doubt about it anywhere across the board. When these guys come on your property, you call the RCMP and you say, you do not have my permission to come on my property and put that thing on there. And that is separate of the radio frequency issues themselves. And you do that, and again, RCMP, once they understand this crime, they'll understand it better because they're putting this on the member's home. Male constables, female constables, the police chief, the fire department, everybody without exception. And if you go, they'll have this file available for you where you can hear a recording where I'm questioning that guy on the property where he emits the blanket radiation that you're not supposed to be hit by. Here's what those connections look like that I'm talking about. Here's a stab connection right here. This is 49 degrees Celsius on this side here. It's 193 on the other side. It's going to go to failure. It's just a matter of time. So we will isolate that for their professionals here. They can fix it. Their insurers love it. Everybody just gets the job done. You put the trades to work. That's it. Here's what the wired connections look like. This was done locally too. This was so hot that it was actually fused shut, and we had to go through the splitter and actually disconnect it live. And here is this connection getting ready to just blow up and do those things and cause those fires. And here's the important part. Around the world, they're blaming the meter. Oh, even in Saskatchewan, can you imagine these dummies have actually said this? We've got a detector in the meter now for heat. You're going to have heat in there no matter what. They're blaming the meter when you've got these festering connections starting that meter on fire separate of the operation of the meter. Once that's on your building, it's bad enough that it's there, guess what? Realtors aren't going to like this, but guess what? We're building inspectors, fire inspectors, and guess what? When we say to them that building is no longer complying with code, guess what? The sale's over. Even just a few days, last week, here are the real estate guys sell a building across the road from me, and it's got a smart meter on it. I contacted the realtor and I said, who inspected that building? I said, did you incorporate the fact that that was done by pizza delivery boys? Not to take away from pizza delivery boys, I was one. But here again, these guys did this, and I said, you've got a compromised building. Imagine a realtor said this, Curtis, the world's a complicated place. And we work for Fortis too. And that's the bottom line with this. That's the weak and professional gene pool, instead of good realtors like Diane and other people saying this. You've got a compromised building. And so imagine this, you guys going to look at a building. You guys want to see that disclaimer on there? By the way, we've had somebody unqualified put this meter on here that might burn down your house and kill you and your family, and that's separate of the radio frequency issues. How much do you want to give us? You know, it's not going to happen. And again, we did this because I have this horrible job, which is this. We have to protect Fortis from themselves. We have to protect people from themselves. You guys that are tradesmen here doing those types of things, we don't overtalk each other for any particular reason in the world. But when the plumber says something to me, when the drywaller says something to me, I don't care who it is, the carpenter or otherwise, we listen to each other, because when I say don't touch that, they know better. You better not touch that. And we're doing this to warn them. Even yesterday it was embarrassing for me to go after Prime Minister Harper. And imagine this, he's the chief administrator for the country. And the idea that under his administration, no matter what, they have allowed cities and everybody to effectively be put inside microwave ovens while they're revising the safety code, the code and the exposure code. Guess what Harper and Industry Canada is doing? They're selling another frequency range because it penetrates further into buildings. The province of Ontario, at the same time that they're revising the exposure code, gives $150 million to radiate children in kindergarten. Can you imagine this? Kindergarten, putting their children in, listen, you're inside a microwave. You can fluff it up, that's the reality. And people said, Curtis, they can't tell if EMFs cause problems. This is a local lumber mill, right here. These guys didn't put an insulating board right here. These are parallel conductors. So when you do that, it's very dangerous with single power lines. So right here, here's what, when I talk about this cycle oscillating, this is just 60 hertz, 60 cycles per second. So you can imagine this, it's going around here and affecting the metal, where it's going positive and negative, positive and negative. It's actually changing polarity 120 times a second. So here are the metal domains of the cabinet trying to change direction. It can't do it, so you're generating heat. That heat is getting close enough to cause failure of the insulation on the wires, where you're going to have a ground fault that is going to be really catastrophic because of where it was located. So it can happen, and that's at 60 hertz. 60 hertz is 60 cycles per second. Do you know how fast the smart meters are in Kelowna? 900 million hertz. 900 million cycles per second. They've got a second antenna that's going to be for Wi-Fi inside your building. You know how fast that one is? 2.45 gigahertz, which is 2.45 billion cycles per second. Those will expand and collapse inside your body 4.9 billion times per measurable second. And here's basically what they're doing. Here's birds, they say, listen, they're on invisible wires and saying this wireless is kind of freaky. But here's the bottom line with this. These guys love this for this. If they came to me and said, Curtis, we want to put computer stations in this school here, 30 stations, what's it going to cost? Is it going to cost you $1,000 a station, whatever it is? A contractor comes along and says this, I'll put a router above the ceiling here, and guess what? We'll radiate the whole area. I'll do it for $2 grand. So the government actually says, hey, that sounds cheaper. None of these guys went back to look at this exposure code that said, causality is missing. Oh, biological plausibility is missing. Now here's what a Dutch telecom worker, this is what he's using to work with microwaves. And you guys wear this at home? You wear this in bed? Let me tell you, it's rough. Wake up next to your loved one, boy, they don't recognize you at all. But it is what it is. And again, imagine this. Here's what these guys wear to protect themselves. But they say this, you get far enough away from this list and it's just further away, it's just a little bit of electromagnetic radiation, not a big deal. Now, limits of human exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic energy in these range. The purpose of this code is this, protect the public. The first sentence, the purpose of the code, protect the public. Do you know what the second sentence says? To reduce contact and induced currents. As soon as I read that, I said, oh my God. Because guess what? Inducing currents means electrocution. And you start reading through this and it says, listen, we don't understand causality and biological plausibility, but as soon as we find out, we'll adapt the code. Can you imagine these weenies did this with a radiation? And even Fortis said, Curtis, we object to Mark Warren again. Mark Warren, I hope you're listening to this. He said, Curtis, we object to calling this radiation. I said, is it electromagnetic radiation? Yes. You're being radiated. So there's the code, protect the public. September 14th, 2010, Canadian electrical government professionals reported causation to Health Canada. And that's where October 26th or 28th, whatever it was, I provided expert witness to Canadian Parliament Standing Committee on Health with this. And wait till you see this causation issue. It is so ridiculous that this technically overwhelmed, you know, you guys, how many tradesmen here? You guys, you're gonna love this. This is what happens when too many of these bean-counting fools just speak over their area of expertise, where you're gonna see this, a plastic head overwhelm the intellectually elite of Canada. A plastic head with water in it. A plastic head with water in it overwhelmed the Prime Minister's office. Overwhelmed Fortis. It's despicable. Because if I came to a construction site where you were working, I said, hey, I brought the plastic head. This is what we're going to do to make sure you guys are safe. You guys would pee in it, put your fish in it. You guys would put some coffee in it. And again, if you had one too, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd draw faces on it, mustaches. And if early explorers had used that plastic head, they would have fallen off the end of the planet. Here's this. Radiation Canada. This is what they use. This is called the Sam Phantom model. They use this for the limits of your electromagnetic radiation dosage. So here I am talking to Radiation Canada with this. See where the bracket for the cell phone is right here? So I said, cell phone manufacturer specs say this. You have to keep that phone half an inch away from your head, right? You've heard that? Hold it away from your head a little bit. So when I'm talking to him, I said, how many antennas talking to that phone when you're doing that? Well, we didn't include the antennas. The cell phone is tested in a sterile environment. They don't want any radio frequency interruption, but guess what? So with Wi-Fi, guess what they did? Only considered the laptop or iPad as an end-use device. You know what they did with smart meters? They said, smart meters are easy. Health Canada actually came out and said, you're good for 24/7 radiation, because who's outside with their smart meter? I don't drive down the roads and see Roselle outside. Oh, look, there's Roselle with her head against the smart meter. Maybe we should tell her not to do that. That's what these fools actually went with. And even when I talked to the radiation guy and I said, what did you do with the bioelectrical information associated with humans? He said, they're not electrical. I said, you guys did this based on that thing being filled with water. Water in a cup of microwave, in a microwave, where our body's made out of water, our cells are made out of water, everything's made out of water, but it's salt water. So imagine this. Here is Ross. They're disrespecting Ross, the doctor, saying, there's no science showing that causes harm, because we consulted the plastic head. It doesn't have any eyes. It doesn't have any nerves. How can that thing get tachycardia? It doesn't have a heart. Can you imagine these fools actually did that? If we did that in the construction industry, I'll tell you what, we'd chase each other off that site and throw things at you. You guys know this. Imagine this. Here's what the intellectual elite were overwhelmed by. You know, they just landed a spacecraft on that asteroid of Comet. Did you hear that? I asked NASA, I said, hey, did you guys take any of that with you? You know, ridiculous. So imagine this with BC Hydro. BC Hydro, and here again, is why governments are not supposed to help industry with anything. When we dug into this, we weren't getting responses from anybody on what was going on. Not our authority having jurisdiction here, not the provincial authority. Ron Cannon, nice man, guess what? Our voice in Ottawa is mute. You know, he's missing in action. I say that, listen, I know Ron very well. When we first came out here, and we did one of our second locations, Ron was selling advertising for the Daily Courier. He helped us find one of our locations. A nice man, goes to church, does all that good stuff and do those things, but guess what? Overwhelmed by this. Now here's BC Hydro. BC Hydro is allowed by the BC government to bypass all regulatory process. They consulted nobody. Get those smart meters in, get that grid in, we've got to hurry, we've got to hurry. So guess what? Here's the specific absorption rate. Here's a diagram of BC Hydro, by BC Hydro, of the grid radiating buildings, radiating everything. Okay, here's the hypocrisy and the fact that, listen, it's just illegal as applied. And that's why the Fortis program, I knew the Fortis program would pass. And the reason is this. If they would have failed, if the BCUC, these dirty politicians, would have failed the Fortis application, guess what? They would have had to reverse BC Hydro's application and their 1.9 million meters. And these guys are so entrenched in their garbage, they don't understand what this stuff is doing. It's actually hurting people. And ecocide is a word. I had to find out if that was real, but it is real. So when they say, you guys, there's no science, all you gotta do is this. That's why when these guys say, Curtis, they're gonna take you to court, and I said, oh no. I said, I get to go in front of a judge and they get to bring in the plastic head. And I said, we're gonna get into that discussion. I said, I wanna see the judge's face. I wanna see a jury's face, because imagine this. Judges are expecting governments to do their jobs. They're not expecting these guys to bypass a process like this. Here's what I said with this. The Center of Disease Control and physicists actually did this in reporting with Wi-Fi. Let's use the stove element as an analogy. Are the children getting close enough to the burner to get burned? No. So therefore it's safe. But they left out the fact that the radiation going throughout the room is causing, you're inducing currents, where Fortis's experts said, yes, that'll generate heat. It's going to cause high-speed polarization. Yes, it's going to generate heat. Plus, rip the little babies apart, rip you guys apart. You can't shake things that violently. And again, those are transcripts that you'll get to read. There is no higher authority in the province, legally and otherwise, for you to represent this. This is the BC government's transcripts without the nonsense. And these guys are going to go to jail because guess what? That makes this applicable to every state, every country. The wireless issue, listen, they can't do it like this. And some people, I envy some people because I see them on those devices and I'd love to have the whole bunch. You just can't have them wireless because you're compromising yourself. And I said this to guys in school. I said, if this is oscillating, 900 megahertz is oscillating 1.8 billion times per second. I said, how'd you like 1.8 billion kicks in the you-know-what? You can't do that. You don't want to do that with this stuff. You don't want to play with it. And I'll share this too, soon with this. Here again, when they say, Curtis, do they realize that, you can see cell phone radiation? I said, no, the plastic head doesn't see anything. Here's a young man before his cell phone use. Here's after an hour. And you can see the lack of symmetry. It's not a localized. These guys actually think this. Oh, the cell phone is just heating a little localized area right here next to the skull. Localized. You can tell with this young man here, this is affecting him, his face, his sinuses, his neck, and all the above. And even imaging people in clinical environments, it's just horrible to image people and say, what's up with your ear? And I'd say, what do you do for a living? I'm a car salesman. You on your cell phone much? Yep. Here's his ear lit up like a Christmas tree, where guess what? If Prime Minister Harper would have done his job, how many people heard this? The World Health Organization, May 31st of 2011, reported cell phones as possibly carcinogenic. Anybody heard that? If Harper would have done his job and reported that causation was found, guess what? They would have been reported as carcinogenic without exception. It's causing glioma, brain cancers. Anybody see that lawyer prior to him passing away talking about his cell phone use, the burns on his arms, what it did for here in his chest, the tumors, and the fact that this did what it did to him, never mind the cancers in his head. And we're getting calls from people and mothers and fathers, and Curtis, my 20-year-old, has got brain cancer. How's that possible? Well, those little guys are just, the little texting thing is underneath their pillow. They don't want to miss their buddies. And imagine this. Here are those frequencies coming back and forth through their head as they transfer that information. And insurers aren't going to like it. Here's this, and this is as sweet as it gets. A doctor took chicken eggs which lay in 21 days and he radiated them. The chicks were mutated. Imagine a Vietnam veteran calling me and saying, Curtis, I'm dying from cell phone radiation, but my grandchild is mutated. I said, you gotta be kidding me, dude. And guess what? For him to send me that picture, and listen, as construction guys, we're tough guys, man. We get hurts on top of our hurts, you still gotta keep going. Guess what? I wept with him on the phone. Here is his granddaughter with her eyes in different places on her head after surgery. They had to unweb her fingers and rebuild her rectum. And imagine saying to that veteran, if she can reproduce, what's she going to reproduce? And it's just that horrible with this, where Barry Trower, and how many people have heard this? This causes genetic mutation of this, it causes this, it causes this. Dr. Havis, all these guys talking about all these symptoms. Dr. Ross back there talking about these things. We're this anal with this. We represent the causal link, which is an electrical mechanism before it hits something. It's an electrical mechanism first. We're substantiating them, and imagine this. Guys, if we were going to get hit by an airplane, guys in the construction industry know this. If an airplane was going to hit the building, the automatic thing for a guy to do is cover your groin. Protect your guys, and do those things. And guess what? Testicular cancers. You know, here's this mutation for real that's going on like this. Cancers and cancers and cancers, it's a reality. And imagine Fortis effectively undermining the medical community here. Who cares about intent? Your people are going to their doctors and saying, Doc, I've got this symptom here, I've got this symptom here, I've got this symptom here. And the doc is actually trying to diagnose that. And guess what? He has no idea that these things are triggering nerves when they're not supposed to hit anything. And you guys, if you go to this, and I do this website thing here, it is this. When we post on there, you'll see the newest anything we post related to anything. We're not selling anything. Okay? You can't do this. Imagine even for guys that I've worked with that said anal, they've said, Curtis, you can see their cancers. And I said, yes, we can do that. You know how much that's worth? Oh yeah. Let's do that. Some guy's dying from cancer, and you want to say, hey, you got a lot of money, dude? So why don't we see if we can get some of that for you while you're being radiated? It's not going to happen. So when you go there, take a look at the science, because here's how it pertains to you. We're there, we work for everybody without exception, and with everybody without exception. So when I say this, as we go here, realtors, it's not going to be comfortable for those guys, but guess what? Now you've got 40,000 compromised buildings. Imagine this when you go to the insurer and the mortgager and say, what do you mean that building's not complying with building code? We want that to protect our investment. Now imagine, what are the taxes on 40,000 buildings? That's the lost revenue for Kelowna. How are they going to tax those buildings? Who's going to pay taxes on an illegal building? So it's so dangerous. And here's the sad thing as well. You know, we work for the city of Kelowna doing those things, and you know, Charlie Hodge, listen, he actually asked me during one election, he said, can we use your environmental work for our platform? We believe in accountability, sustainability. Well, Charlie's MIA too. The fact that we contact the mayor and council and do not get a response at all is ridiculous, it's negligent, it's reckless, and they're reckoning it's coming for this. You can't do that without exception. And here again, people have said, Curtis, the mayor's a nice guy, and I said, wow, so am I, sometimes. But guess what? Nice guys go to jail too, the mayor's got a job to do. And no matter what, they should be doing their job the same way Sharon Shepherd did. When Sharon Shepherd got into office, I was there when they swore her in and she took the oath, and she looked at me and she said, I guess I'll be seeing you. And I said, you can bet on that, Mayor Shepherd. But Sharon Shepherd did her job. Okay, Curtis, I'm going to set you up to talk to the bylaw guys. I'm going to set you up to talk to these guys. Sharon had no idea that these guys didn't list any part of it, and the city manager effectively undermined the mayor's office. So these guys think, oh, it's a pesky guy there, instead of we're codes and standards, whether it's electricity, whether it's buildings or otherwise. These guys, what they've done is a horrible job, and they've recklessly endangered you, and it's a sad thing. But you know what I tell everybody without exception? You need to go to the RCMP and get a file number for real. The liability and the damage is real, and I would tell people to do it for this. I'm going to do it. And you know why? I want it to be a matter of record. Because their reckoning is coming for this. And does anybody think this? Insurance companies, what was it, 40,000 times 350,000 worth? $14 trillion. Let's send that check to the insurance company. Oh, good. Do you want cash? They're going to chase them down and drill their fillings out of their head if they're gold. Anybody work around an insurance company before? You don't fall over in their parking lot because they might just accidentally back over you. And I tease them because I work for insurance companies, and here's what they do. The management actually educated me. They said this: we want to save money. So let's go tell them right now. And realtors, you imagine the liability with this. And civil engineers have errors and emissions insurance. The city of Kelowna is insured. So just based on what somebody said, Curtis, what if it's not $350,000? I said, pick $100,000. You imagine with Fortis. Now here's the other thing as well for you guys to know this. Mark Warren had something in the Capital News again, talking and spewing his nonsense about these meters being safe. And that was a little while ago, so last Friday I contacted Fortis's office and I asked for Mark Warren. They put me on hold. When they came back in, they said, listen, he's not here right now. I said, who's your highest administrative officer right there? And actually Roselle had told me that his name is Michael Mulcahy or whatever. I said, he's the CEO of Fortis. So Monday, Mark Warren, I said, I want to talk to the CEO. So Monday, Mark sends me an email. Here's his 2 lines. Hi Curtis, I understand you called the office on Friday. How can I help you? So I wrote him back and I said, you did not qualify the safety of your program, blah, blah. You guys, if you want to see that, it's okay. I said, listen, you didn't qualify anything and I don't want to hear you give me an unqualified opinion. I want to meet with you, the accountant Losky, and the CEO of Fortis. And I said, I want that done based on an unprecedented urgency. Didn't hear from him on Tuesday, didn't hear from him on Wednesday. Wednesday I sent him another email and I said, I want confirmation that the CE knows. How many meters did you guys install between Monday and now? Because now you've got those compromised buildings as well. And the CEO is not going to be laughing for a publicly traded company having any potential liability like that. These guys are in a lot of trouble. So, and again, here's the other thing as well. How many people know that Fortis owns the gas utility as well? Well, imagine this for this. The gas guys, anybody work with a gas fitter before? These guys handling leaks. As soon as you talk to gas fitters, they say, when we get a gas leak, the gas is moving. You can hear this stuff just sizzling away at you. Guess what? That can set off an explosion. Just that movement of the gas. And these guys aren't even protected from that. Now imagine Fortis. Here's their electrical engineer expert under cross-examination, and I say to him, because when we wire explosion-proof areas in industrial construction, refineries, H2S gas places, places with volatile, even a grain elevator, we wire that to avoid a spark. Actually, the electrical equipment will contain an explosion so you don't get a spark and blow the place up. The other reason I have to meet with Fortis is this. They're endangering their gas division. They're going to induce a charge where they're going to set off and they're going to blow up the place for real. They're going to kill those men and women for real. Even today, somebody sends me something that said, Curtis, a building in New York blew up. And oh, it's gas related. Somebody calls me from San Bruno, and guess what? They had a gas explosion down there. It blew up blocks. And here's Fortis's engineer saying, by the way, oh yeah, the frequencies, that 900 megahertz did go into the ground over 39 inches. So you're going to induce charges, it's going to endanger tradesmen, it's going to endanger their own workers, and we've got a bigger job to represent the safety of that. So, and the pacemaker issue, again, you guys, very serious. When these guys get this going, it's going to trigger a pacemaker. People that are vulnerable, people wearing devices with, imagine oxygen. Oxygen, even talking to a nurse about it in the hospital. How volatile is that area with the oxygen? Very volatile. And imagine this, inducing a charge where we cause an explosion in the hospitals. Imagine in labs, in schools, here cleaning solvents, whatever it is. You can induce a static charge where, boom. And imagine in Ontario where they've already installed a lot of this to get called by construction guys that said this. And as soon as he told me, I laughed, and he said, Curtis, this isn't funny. And I said, I'm laughing because it's outrageous. He said, my parents are walking across the floor, and he said, they touch things and they're grounding out. So you think, when people go, Curtis, it's only static. I said, so's lightning. You got to pay attention to this. And he said, we can move our hand across the blankets, and here's this, you can see the sparks. You think of your clothing in that volatile environment and somebody rubs against it or do those things and you're going to set off a charge. It doesn't matter what it is. So I'm looking forward to questions from anybody. There's no such thing as a dumb question. They have to be answered for real.
Did I hear recently that Lloyd's in London was increasing some to insure some
Opposed.
Okay, you want me to repeat that?
Marty,
Yes,
you want to
please.
come up
Do
here?
you want to come up there and do that?
Marty,
Can you say it for me, please?
what was your question?
It was what Lloyd's of London.
Yes, Lloyd's of London.
Lloyd's of London has issued that disclaimer that, listen, we're not going to insure wireless issues. But guess what with Lloyd's of London? They don't know yet that it's going through buildings, and therefore it's going to affect building compliance too. So the insurance industry is already stepping up, and here's the horrible part. They didn't tell them. They didn't consult them. When you read those transcripts, you're going to hear Mark Warren when I say to him, Mark, don't you think you should have consulted anybody? No. Are you going to? No. You're going to get some tests done? You know, engineers are insured for errors or omissions. So are electrical engineers. No. Yes, sir?
Yeah. Fortis has contacted me about changing my gas meter.
Here's what you like with this. I watched him do a gas meter. I went over there, and the gas guy said this. He said, we're not using wireless. Your meter has literally expired. That big tank that you have on there. And they did that actually at my place before too, where, listen, I watched them very carefully, and he said, no. He said, those wireless things are $900. We're not doing it. He said, plus they're going to cause a fire.
Yeah.
They're going to cause an explosion. So you just keep an eye on them, because all they're doing is that gas meter has expired, whether it's gaskets, whether it's whatever, that design part of that, so they're going to change that. But just make sure it's got no radio frequency capabilities, and they'll tell you, no, they're not doing that yet. And they won't be doing that.
Yeah, he just said that there would be, the meter reader comes out to the property and reads the digits just like you would.
Yes, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
A meter reader. You know, have those guys come out there, inspect that meter, and see if there's whatever bad stuff going on. So with the gas meters so far, it's okay. And here's the thing as well, for you guys to think about with this. The Auditor General active candidates, and the Auditor General monitors the federal government. Under sustainability, it says this: you shall not impact future generations with what you do today. So imagine this. Do you think she's going to go, or the Auditor General is going to go with this? Oh, you've put all those babies in a microwave oven. You're going to have that liability across the board, where how many people have kids in school? Imagine friends of mine actually contacting me and saying, Curtis, they want to sedate my daughter. And I said, what's up? And they said, she's just acting out. She's acting out. She doesn't sleep. She doesn't do anything. And I said, they got Wi-Fi in our school. Yes. So you know what they want to do? Sedate her. They're neurologically interfering with them, and they want to sedate them. You know, imagine this too. Imagine this, and if you listen, I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. I had to work hard for my credentials. But guess what? Imagine neurologically interfering with your children and grading them on their intelligence. They're going to have lawsuits after they get out of school because you've deprived them of their education. Separate of the parents. How many people have children here? Grandchildren? Any of the above? Imagine this. What's a lawsuit worth when your genetic downline is finished? When you can't reproduce, your children, your grandchildren are not going to be able to reproduce. That egg issue is only going to get worse. And now they did more studies where, guess what? They radiated bird eggs, and the guy actually measured the mutations inside the egg. So imagine this, and here's me as a biological dummy, and medicine likes this with me. They said, Curtis, did you know all the girls have all their eggs when they're born? And I said, no way. And they said, what did you think? And I said, I think of a great big chicken. You know, trying to lose those eggs as you go along. I had no idea. I thought they developed them as they went along or did whatever. They have their eggs at birth. And so imagine radiating those eggs and affecting their ability to reproduce. And we know we've got reproductive problems anyways. And the crowd goes wild. Any questions, guys? Listen, there's no such thing as a dumb question. You know, I'm a very humble guy and coming from a farming and all that good background.
Well, everybody understands.
No.
You're going from the go ahead, man. Oh, yeah, thank you. Listen, I only say that because when I was at the Timmy Hortons there, someone said, no, the old guy in the back. Everybody, including me, turned around and I said, I'm the old guy now. Go ahead.
I have my notice out. I've got my paperwork in place.
But now I'm having additional issues with the people living upstairs from me, who out of spite are taking my notices down. So I'm taking time off work tomorrow to go file charges, and I wanted some input from you as to how that conversation should go down.
Here, you know what you do is this, and again, here's an important part, and we'll do this for you, and I mean this. There are people here that have gone to the RCMP and explained to them, listen, here are the real problems. You'll have these transcripts, which are the highest authority, including who hires the police force. You say that this is dangerous, you make sure you get my number, the RCMP can get to me. You insist upon a file number, we'll support you on this 100% because they shouldn't be touching those notices. But again, you guys imagine this for real. I don't have a notice. When the guy came on my place, I said, get off the property. When they came back with a journeyman electrician, I said, you get off the property. I said, I'll call the police, and I said, I will drag your ass off the property. But you just get a hold of me and get the constable to get a hold of me and doing those things, we'll back that up for you and just explain that because they need to know this. No, it has to be. You imagine this with the police, and again, here's this thing. You guys, anybody been to court before where your property line goes from heaven to hell? So when the neighbor's trees are hanging over your property line, guess what? You can chop them down. And do that because you own this. These guys can't fire highly penetrating EMFs across your property line. It's assaulting you and your buildings. So when you're talking about this analogy for policemen, imagine I did this with a policeman. Grandma, like I said, with grandma next door, you know, they're picnicking, and I don't like those seniors picnicking, so I just start tasing them all. Tase her little picnicking friends, tase their critters, and the police come up, tase them too, and they say, Curtis, we're going to respond with lethal force. They're effectively tasing you and they're hurting you, except the only reason I say tasing is that's something you'll understand. It's really called electrocution. It's not called hypersensitivity. The fact that they got that even going is just a horrible thing because industry didn't pay attention to these guys for too long.
If Fortis offers to turn the signal off on your meter, is there any credibility to that? Or how do they get the signal?
Oh, I trust him.
You trust me?
No. You can imagine this. I've even heard this. I've heard a couple of different things. No, Curtis, you know, we'll turn the radio off. Well, that means you can turn the radio on and they can do it remotely. And you know, guess what? You can't trust these guys for anything. Someone else said, oh, Fortis is going to remove the radio from the meter and then put it on. Well, as soon as you do that, you're tampering with somebody's device that isn't yours. The spec sheet doesn't say that. So when they say they're going to do that, it doesn't matter. An opt-out is not going to work. Guess what? The analog meter, it's a measurement device. That's what they're designed for. No radio frequencies, none of that garbage. And here's Fortis. And another reason why I want to meet with the CEO. You know that Fortis owns the Holiday Inn? Fortis Properties owns the Holiday Inn. Their hotel will be non-compliant with building code 4.1.3.6. And if that reaches a point where engineers decide that you can't cross that and fire department tags off that door, guess what? You're not going to have occupancy in their hotel. Their own investment's going to be lost. So it's a horrible thing to protect weenies from themselves, but that's what's got to be done. So I want to go into Fortis' office and just wait. These guys haven't seen the end of this yet.
No more Holiday Inn.
No more Holiday Inn. And again, here's the reality too. Do you think the CEO is going to say, oh, Mark, you dismissed Curtis's, I didn't even know what that was when they said, Curtis is a layman's understanding of electricity. I said, what the heck is that? They're saying, you do electricity as a hobby instead of your government credentialed profession. So when he said this, you know what, Curtis, what you're talking about is a theory, a hypothesis. You know what? The CEO is not going to be laughing when you got a publicly traded company and you're talking potentially $14 trillion. You know, oh boy, I wonder how that's going to go over with investors. And the city of Kelowna has invested your money, that, what is it, $50 million, and then you killed it.
55 million.
55 million got invested in Fortis.
And the stocks have gone down.
Well, and the stock, you can imagine where the stocks are going to go with this wireless issue. That's what I mean. The Prime Minister, here's a sad thing. Prime Minister Harper, can you see this? You're going to go to jail. And when I say that, they go, hey, Curtis, he's the Prime Minister. If you as a tradesman hurt somebody and recklessly endanger people, you're liable. If we drive recklessly and endanger people, we're liable. If I kill people in my employ or do something reckless, we're liable. These guys are not exempt. And here's the problem with these guys. We're not supposed to have a political party and effectively a special interest group running the government of the people. That's a conflict of interest. These guys aren't doing their jobs. And Mr. Harper, there's a reason we told him, Mr. Harper, don't do that. There are reasons we told Ron Cannon, Ron, you're a good guy, don't do this. Because he's a good guy, but guess what? You know how many people know Norman Letnick? Well, you know what Norm said to me? Curtis, who recognizes what you do? And I said, oh, Norm, I don't know. BC government, BC building code, electrical code. I said, are you out of your mind? Here's Norm, so party favorite, so protective of his party. Norm's not even returning my calls. So here's a bad thing with Norm too. Norm, you're going to go to jail. They're going to go to jail. Mark Warren, these guys are going to go to jail. Even my own office did this. As soon as I heard that this was happening, my office said this to me. They said, you're swearing. And I said, yes, I'm in the know. If I don't do my job in my capacity, I'm recklessly endangering people and I deserve to go to jail. That's it. And imagine in Oklahoma. Oklahoma called me and they said, Curtis, they've killed people. And I've said, do you have the death penalty? And they said, yes. And I said, oh, golly. You know, what are they going to say? Listen, I accidentally put these children in the microwave and killed them. How many people heard about, and here again, this is shameful. Here we are, you know, lecturing with the Jewish community and different people and doing those things. How many people know in World War II that they put Jews in ovens? They killed millions of them. FortisBC is going to put everybody in 17,000 square kilometers, all those cities, inside a microwave oven. Prime Minister Harper has, imagine this, they got put to death for putting 5 million Jews in the ovens. Guess what? Harper's going to put 37 million Canadians in the oven. You can't do this.
Just with regards to what the gentleman was asking earlier about meters being off, I don't know where I got all the information. I've been scanning the web and trying to sponge it as much as I could, but my understanding on how the meters work is that they rely on, and you can maybe verify this, they rely on a repeater signal, and I was told, or that I read, that about, I don't know, every 10th or 20th house, whatever, would have a higher powered meter that would transmit to the telephone pole, and then the telephone pole would transmit to head office or whatever. So my understanding of when they say they're going to give you a radio off is that all it's going to do is not transmit your house's readings, but the grid relies on the repeater signals.
Listen, you're right. Imagine this. The antenna reaches 3 kilometers. My closest neighbor is 50 feet. So here's the thing in reality. It gets so legally ugly. Do I sue the neighbor? Do I sue the other neighbor? They've just created this great big mess where, again, hear what you said is important with this, because here's an example in Texas. Texas Encore admitted this, where here's the lieutenant governor saying, Curtis, we're talking about an opt-out. And I said, Encore admitted this. One smart meter router covered 5 square miles. One collector covered 125 square miles. And guess what? If you opt out, big deal. You're going to get it. That's why we don't want this. We need a meter. Not a measure, not this thing like this where these guys are getting too much information. And guess what? They're trying to address those energy issues where even the city of Seattle today, their smart meter program isn't going to address 1 watt of energy. Now we talked about liability of 40,000 meters. Imagine the Auditor General of Ontario saying, we've lost $2 billion and you can't substantiate any savings with the smart meter program. The Auditor General of Ontario, we told them this, I said, we forgot to incorporate 4.8 million meters installed. Mass installed in 4.8 million compromised buildings. And people think, what's the big deal? Wait till they get to deal with insurers and their lawyers. It's just horrific. So you guys, if there are no more questions or doing those types of things, she's going to say some more. But you guys, you have to pay attention to this, even when some people say, I'm not as sensitive as others, I'm not doing this. Guess what? You're in the field. How many people imagine this with a museum. An archaeologist saying, Curtis, what's this going to do to a museum? Oh, Well, it's going to cause accelerated corrosion in the museum and all the artifacts. Does anybody know anybody incredibly wealthy with paintings? Well, tell them this, guess what? Your paintings are going to be dust. You're going to lose your wealth no matter who you are, and people better pay attention. And we've got to jump on this because guess what they're doing now? Let's put that Wi-Fi in cars. Let's do this and radiate everything. And imagine neurologically stimulating drivers. These people have got enough challenges out there driving without being neurologically interfered with. And here's a sad thing as well. And I want to say this. People remember that Sandy Hook shooting where the autistic boy shot those kids in the face with an assault rifle? I contacted medicine and I said, please tell me that the neurological interference because of Wi-Fi couldn't do that. And here the doctor says, Curtis, they're incoherent. And imagine this electrical information crashing through them, where some people, even yesterday, here I'm dealing with a teacher that said, Curtis, the neighbors are targeting me. It's a military thing, I know. And I said, where do they work? And she said, it's the military. They're at the organic grocery store. I said, so you really think the special op guys are working groceries just to get you, teacher? But this is what's going on with this interference. They truly believe this. So everybody needs to do this without exception, because imagine lawyers, and here are the bad lawyers, where here, I told them, I said, don't you ever ask me to do this. And then a lawyer calls me and he said, Curtis, this policeman killed people when he's a good man. He didn't mean to do that. Could these frequencies have interfered with him and allow him an excuse? Oh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. That gets really dangerous, because imagine anybody in the world with sleazy lawyers could do that. Yeah, so what, I murdered a whole herd of people, who cares? Curtis, the wireless could have done this to him. You're asking anybody, because Fortis admitted to it in a cross-examination. You need to read the transcripts that they have. It's the evidence. Expand on it. We're talking about causality. Everything you need is there. We have to get this to these guys' attention for all reasons in the world. We're in a lot of trouble. Doing my job.
Well,
Good job.
thank you. Great job. Excellent job. Thanks, Curtis.
Just to be.
And thank you for bringing up the responsibilities that aren't being met. And so if they aren't being responsible, they're going to be liable. And if you don't know anything about our notice of liability, please look into it. You were all handed a paper when you walked in. It's easy to sign up. We have lots of volunteers helping you through it. And so please look into that and spread the news. Also, if you haven't, here's a notice to stick up on your meter, on your front door. We have rings and locks in the back. And tell your neighbors, tell everybody. And it really is stopping them from taking your analog meter. The other thing is...
Did you tell them what a realtor calling you regarding that? Let's say.
Yes, a realtor came into one of our people here tonight. A realtor phoned me and said one of their people had come into the office, and somebody wishing to buy a home wanted a stipulation that it was. Notices were up that they would not get a smart meter, and that they could continue fighting smart meters after they bought the house. So it was a condition of the sale. Yeah, so we're learning. The community's getting it. The other thing I'd like everybody to do is go get a medical exam. And if I could throw a medical exam so you can have a baseline. Because there's going to be a whole bunch of things happening to people, and they're going to say, oh, no, it's in your head, it's whatever. Well, we're going to have a list up on the site. There's all kinds of information on our site, KelownaSafeMeters.com. And we're going to have a list of things and symptoms that can happen with the safe meters. And there's the cumulative effect. Some people are already getting it through cell towers and Wi-Fi, etc. But at least you're going to have a place to go. You'll have a record of it. And so we're encouraging everybody to do that so that we can go forward. Curtis?
very important to tell your doctors this, for real, your doctors and your health professionals across the board. The dangers of these frequencies is now lectured in accredited medical education for education credits may require for ongoing medical licensing. It's very important to share that. One of the things you can see as well, here's a letter from the Health Education Administrator making sure of that as well. And the significance of that is this. Lawyers, as an example, require ongoing education credits for law or they're suspended from practicing law. Okay, so this is applicable here. Imagine undermining your medical professionals, and here's that liability with them, veterinarians, and effectively everybody across the board. So just keep an ear on that.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Troy?
Yes, thank you, Raziel. Just for anyone who's interested, I lucked out and I found a doctor who was knowledgeable about smart meters, as well as vaccines and other issues. And so if anyone is searching for a sympathetic doctor to go to, is Dr. Mundell in West Bank.
Dr. who?
Dr. Mundell, M-U-E-N-D-E-L.
Okay, could you please email that to us, and then we'll stick it out on one of our chip mail outs to everybody here, and anybody that hasn't signed in and wishes to get mail outs, please make sure that your email is at the front door. That's another issue. Some people say they aren't getting our notices. Please check to see if they've been sent to other parts of your email system. Sometimes they're coming up, and with and overnight, all of a sudden, there's more departments where my emails have gone. And so please check through all the possibilities where your emails are going and change things as you need them. Roy.
A short little question here. When is this grid going to come online? When is it going to power up? Like obviously they've got to install all the meters first, but when is this thing going to power up where you can actually watch?
That we don't know. Yet some people say they are turned on now in some areas. I don't know. Ross, do you know? Have you, Ross, been doing some meter checking?
I can just tell you what happened in BC land, BC Hydro land. They were put in July and August 2012. They did not turn them on until the following March or April. In Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, what happened, because there was a lot of testing going on after they went in, and they were syncing up. So a lot of them were firing off every 30 seconds for 3 or 4 days, and this is why we're seeing some really serious problems immediately after they go in certain areas. And so this sync-up process is they're trying to find other meters and figure out who's talking to who, and I mean, nobody really knows exactly what's going on, but it was quite serious. So that's probably what's been happening so far, but I don't think that they actually will be turned on to be transmitting until probably late this year or early next year, but nobody really knows.
So that would be part of the grid, although some people are experiencing symptoms now with whatever they've put in, whether it's the radio off or the smart meter. There's been small dogs, 4-pound dogs vomiting, cats vomiting. There's some children, nosebleeds, severe headaches. A lot of parents said, my children can't sleep, they're very irritated, and that's almost immediately. And some of them, they didn't know the meter was on, but they started investigating, and then they realized they had a new meter on the house.
That's the dirty electricity component.
Yeah.
So that dirty electricity goes back on all the lines in the house and is then broadcasted throughout the home. So now you've got electric fields that are extremely toxic that you didn't have before.
Yeah, some of them say that the dirty electricity is as bad as the smart meter. There's a fellow who wrote Dirty Electricity. His name is Sam Milham, and we're hoping to have him here in May to talk to us.
Okay, there's one more thing for you.
Okay.
Here, and this is unsolicited from me, though. I've got a tech guy that I've been working with for 17 years. You know, he's one of these guys where I give him a hard time, and I said, you still love your wife? And he goes, Curtis, I love her to death. We're best friends. And I said, you guys are sick. But anyways, listen, they're such doting parents. It's so amazing to watch these guys with the time they spend on their children. They're over here a block. So when they started putting meters in here, they're just starting those up and just testing them to send a signal back to do something, they're doing something. He said to me that night, he said, my daughter couldn't sleep. Imagine his wife, and here she answers the phone last week, and she said, Curtis, we've got a little group over here, and she said, some of their families their kids are having seizures. So imagine this for real. Their kids are having seizures, and they're going to a doctor, and they're trying to isolate what's causing this instead of this stuff here. So truly keep an eye on it. And guess what? And I'll tell you this, and for other reasons we warned you, there's much bigger powers that be that are going to jump into this. Wait till when people said, Curtis, you don't think the lawyers are going to leave town? I said, you haven't dealt with the lawyers very much, have you? As soon as they find out that there's trillions of dollars in damage and there's a potential contingency, they're going to be like seagulls fighting over a dead fish. It's going to be all good.
Curtis, I have a quick question for you. You touched briefly on someone who had an outrageous power bill, and you went out, and it didn't sound like you really had an answer for how that could be possible. And I just wanted to mention a group called Mamas for Mamas, who's trying to raise awareness and really struggling for their children, even because of the outrageous power bills, between $7,000 and $1,000 a month. And I mean, we need to maybe, since you're so helpful, maybe you could even get in contact with them and help them out. As I haven't seen in the media, you know, they're struggling. We've been trying to help with helping them pick at Christy Clark's office a few weeks ago, and the media was supposed to show up, but they ended up no show. And they really could need some help. And other people, I know someone personally who's got the same issue with power bills, and we're not even sure if these are all smart meter homes. It almost seems like there's another agenda with God knows what's going on. How can this be possible with these outrageous bills?
Well, here's the thing for real. Me being an energy expert, this is what we are. And even the building part of this is what we do. It's energy, energy, energy. So here's some horrible things to think about with this. Is one, the two-tiered system exists because the city of Kelowna didn't do their jobs in reporting this waste issue. So there is this massive waste that they're billing you extra for. Now here's something else as well. How many people use those old incandescent light bulbs? Where you screw those things in, they're more heat than anything else. Guess what? It's copper going all the way in until you got the tungsten element at the end. And the electrons get to the tungsten, they go, holy mackerel, it sure is tough getting through here. So they start working and wiggling around, and they create heat because of the resistance. Okay? That heat, that's why those light bulbs were 97% heat or 95% heat and 5% light. Now imagine this for real with Fortis, and this is why there's going to be an investigation to this. They could be billing you and billing people because the EMFs are going through you and your building, and as soon as they hit things, here's this resistance, so it's picking this stuff up. It's just so outrageous what they've done with this, and there's no excuse for it. I want you to know that we're all over that for all reasons in the world. Even the building we investigated, this gentleman was very conscientious of his power. We weren't there to be nice, and the idea that these guys said he used 6,500 kilowatts or 6.5 million watts in 2 months was ridiculous.
So he didn't have a smart meter?
Well, he doesn't have a smart meter on there now, but we're going to deal with this building issue, and I'd love to hear from them. We'd love to help them. And we're going to be addressing this with Fortis. You know, we're not going to be popular going in to see Fortis and doing those things. And they said, Curtis, you guys are going into the Lion's Den. I said, no, we're taking the Lions into the den. And then we're also going to be over here at City Hall. We're going to be dealing with these guys here from the bottom up. These guys are going to do their jobs, and let me tell you something. There's going to be investigations at this real high level because what's going on with people like that is ridiculous. Imagine this person that I'm even looking at his building for. This guy makes a good dollar. He makes a darn good dollar. And guess what? Might have to sell my house. Might have to do this, might have to get out of here. I've heard this stuff with the power bills, it's ridiculous. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, but here's the thing is, Fortis isn't answering questions from anybody. These guys just rage forward with this, and this is what happens. How many people know what building code is? Well, guess what? It takes years to do a building code. Years, because you've got all that input at all the required levels for everything you're talking about. Oh, the BC legislature entrusted these guys to bypass all regulatory process, so they never told anybody. Even the fact that, imagine this, they're going to change biology and engineering, but they didn't tell the university here. Their degrees are no longer going to be applicable. Their education is no longer going to be applicable. They've undermined everybody. They're going to be investigating, and I can guarantee you that, okay? So I'd love to hear from them. please tell them to get a hold of me, because we're up there representing the best interests of everybody, ourselves, including Fortis, and listen, there's no stopping.
And Gary, I already have their information, and we're going to get them filmed and up on YouTube immediately, and just get that, show the world what's happening here in Kelowna. Yeah.
Oh, and
And
I should just say that too. Here again is the thing that Fortis doesn't know. You can see the energy. It's not rocket science. You just saw it here. We're going to see really the power that they're using. The same thing we did with this fellow's place. Where, listen, I didn't go in there to be nice, but guess what? His building is doing very well, all things considered. It's got some issues with it, but there's no way in the world he's using that wattage. So we're going to look forward to helping him for real, okay? And guess what? They've got no sight, we've got eyesight, and it's lectured at the highest accredited level now.
I was just going to say that we have to stay strong now. We're starting to see that there's more Fortis smart meters in town, and everybody's getting down in the mountain. This is the time to really wake up and get energized, every one of us, and get everybody going. This is going to go on for a while, I feel in my bones, but we can do it, and we've created something here in Kelowna area that hasn't been done anywhere in Canada, and that's the liability suits that we have out there if you're interested. And it's going to be absolutely phenomenal once it gets rolling. And, you know, just congratulations to all, and thank you to all the volunteers that have put in so many hours so far. And we've just got started. So thank you so much, Curtis. It's just been fabulous again. Thank you.